1. Introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable. Wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, or RAWSEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this RAWSEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025, and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives, and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Webisode 57DHXXj September 16, 2025 Canberra ACT Government would heater phase-out backtrack. In Webisode 57DHXXj 1 Google alerts Australia outrage in Canberra as ACT Government backtracks on would heater phase-out 2 other media Wisconsin Infectious Disease Update Conference 2025 and Wisconsin Madison flu shots and the possibility of COVID-19 shots. 3 headlines RFK Jr. said he would not take away vaccines this week will be the test main content. 1 Australia Canberra would smoke outrage in Canberra as ACT Government backtracks on would heater phase-out air quality. News research from the Australian National University ANU backed up those findings, estimating that smoke from wood heaters causes up to 63 premature RAWSEP View ACT, refers to Australia and its internal territory, the Australian Capital Territory ACT, or it could refer to the Australia Act 1986, which along with similar state legislation granted Australia complete legal independence from the United Kingdom. The ACT is home to the Australian capital Canberra and hosts key federal institutions and national monuments. The Australia Act 1986 was a landmark piece of legislation that completed the Australian constitutional independence by removing the final legal ties to the UK. AI overview of article below. Outrage has emerged in Canberra after the ACT government backtracked on its 2023 commitment to phase out wood heaters by 2045 with environmental groups and residents condemning the decision to delay further action on wood smoke pollution. The government voted down a motion to advance the phase-out and has downplayed previous commitments, leading to criticism for prioritizing inaction over public health and environmental concerns. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. AI overview of article from Air Quality News September 16, 2025 Clean Air Canberra. Informing and educating our community. Outrage has emerged in Canberra after the ACT government backtracked on its 2023 commitment to phase out wood heaters by 2045, with environmental groups and residents condemning the decision to delay further action on wood smoke pollution. The government voted down a motion to advance the phase-out and has downplayed previous commitments, leading to criticism for prioritizing inaction over public health and environmental concerns. Key Details Backtracking on commitment. The ACT government has backtracked on its 2023 pledge to phase out wood heaters by 2045. Motion defeated. The government voted against a motion from the ACT Greens that called for community consultation, finalizing a phase-out plan, and establishing a wood heater register. Public health concerns. Wood heater smoke is a major source of particulate matter pollution, exacerbating respiratory and cardiovascular conditions and contributing to premature deaths. Criticism from groups. The Conservation Council ACT region and other groups have expressed dismay and condemned the decision of the government. Contradictory Statements The Minister for Climate Change downplayed the seriousness of wood heater pollution and framed the 2045 commitment as only agreed to in principle. Why this is happening. Public opinion and lobbying. The wood heating industry may be lobbying against the phase-out, potentially influencing government decisions ahead of local elections. According to Air Quality News Government Indecision, the government has shown a lack of willingness to implement concrete steps, citing the perceived difficulty and cost of implementing the phase-out. Environmental and health evidence. Despite evidence from the ACT Commissioner for Sustainability and the Environment and Studies from the Australian National University ANU, the government has failed to act decisively. Headlines. Google alert September 16, 2025 North America PM 2.5 long range PM 2.5 pollution and health impacts from the 2023 Canadian wildfires. Nature. Here, we use satellite observations, machine learning, and a chemical transport model to quantify global and regional PM 2.5 particulate matter, less United States PM 2.5 ambient air pollution and the severity of Alzheimer's disease, neuropathology, JAMA network, importance, exposure. To find particulate matter air pollution PM 2. May 5th increase risk for dementia. It is unknown whether this association is United States would smoke back to school. What is in the air your kids are breathing? American Lung Association residential wood burning and prescribed burns release particulate matter and other harmful pollutants that can get deep into the lungs. It is not United States PM 2.5 exposure to ambient air pollutants linked to risk for Alzheimer's disease. Neurology advisor. Chronic exposure to fine particulate matter PM 2.5 is associated with increased risk of developing Alzheimer's disease AD, according to study Inside Precision Medicine. PM 2.5 exposure, cognition, and neuropathology. Another recent study published in Science showed a similar link between exposure to PM 2.5. United States heat pump. ACHR News. Home electrification company Jetson has launched the Jetson Air, the first fully integrated smart home heat pump platform of the industry. United States PM 2.5. How to tell if your outdoor air is safe. Time magazine. Such substances contain dangerous material called particulate matter 2.5, much thinner than a strand of hair. PM 2.5 can penetrate deep inside the body. United States PM 2.5. Smog in the brain, dirty air speeds Alzheimer's decline. Science Daily. Particulate matter 2.5 micrometers and smaller. PM 2.5 is so small that previous research has linked air pollution containing PM 2.5 with dementia. United States heat pump rebate. Americans can get $2,200 in incentives to swap their inefficient water heaters out for high-tech models that cool down. However, the home electrification and appliances rebate program will still exist, meaning some homeowners could get up to $1,750 off a heat pump. Water. United States heat pump appliance expert shares first-hand benefits of upgrading to an efficient water heater. The cool down. One expert is sounding the alarm on a government update about home appliances. Here is why you should upgrade to a heat pump water heater. United States heat pump rebate. Federal tax credits for home appliance upgrades are disappearing. The cool down. Click your choice to see results and speak your mind. Another way you can save on home energy is by upgrading your HVAC system to a heat pump, which United States States heat pump homeowners reveal the unexpected benefits of using heat pump HVCs during the wintertime, the cool down one. Reddit users shared how their high-efficiency heat pump had fared during its first winter, including how it surprised them. United States heat pump new research reveals overlooked benefit of next-gen home heating appliances. Big surprise. Yahoo! For years, heat pumps have been hailed as a cleaner, cheaper way to heat homes. Now new research shows their potential is even bigger. United States heat pump rebate. State governments are still giving away $840 for new stoves despite dwindling federal tax credits. The cool down rebate programs, which help offset the cost of heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, induction stoves, weatherization, and other energy-efficient. United States heat pump. Want a heat pump? This startup just cut the cost in half. Fast Company. If you have an aging furnace, you might have considered replacing it with a heat pump. The efficient technology helps shrink utility bills. California heat pump rebate. Californians must fund heat pumps capital weekly, yet every week frustrated families and local contractors call us about the same maddening problem. The heat pump rebate program in California has run dry. California Santa Clara heat pump rebate. Upgrade to a heat pump HVAC and save big. City News. City of Santa Clara switched to a high-efficiency electric heat pump HVAC system and received $3,000 per ton in rebates, up to $10,000 bonus rebate for income qualified. California. Fresno County. The cabin fire. Wood-burning breaking cabin fire reported in Fresno County on September 7th. Fresno B cabin fire has been burning on federal land managed by the United States Forest Service for 31 hours. Update. Wood fire in Modoc County. September 8th. California. Fresno County. The Silver Fire. Wood-burning update. Silver Fire in Fresno County. September 8th. Status. San Luis Obispo Tribune. San Luis Obispo Tribune. It has been burning on federal land managed by the United States Forest Service for 5 days. Update. Wood fire in Modoc County. September 8th. Status. California. Fresno County. The Tombstone Fire. Wood-burning update. Tombstone Fire in Fresno County. September 8th. Status. Fresno B. It has been burning on federal land managed by the United States Forest Service for 16 days. Update. Burnt fire in Fresno County. September 8th. Status. Fresno B. It has been burning on federal land managed by the United States Forest Service for 3 days. California. Fresno County. The Tombstone Fire. Wood-burning update. Tombstone Fire in Fresno County. CA. September 8th. Status. Modesto B. Modesto B. It has been burning on federal land managed by the United States Forest Service for 16 days. The fire is thought to have originated from natural. California. Los Angeles County. A new unnamed wildfire. Wood-burning breaking new wildfire reported in Los Angeles County on September 8th. Wildfire breaks out in Los Angeles County. CA. San Luis Obispo Tribune. Merced Sun. Star. The wildfire has been burning on private land. California. Modoc County. The named Wood fire. Wood-burning update. Wood fire in Modoc County. September 8th. Status. Sacramento B. Fire type. Wildfire. Fire name. Wood. The wood fire initially started today at 8 p.m. in Modoc County. California. Fresno B. Fresno B. The wood fire has been burning on federal land managed by the United States Forest Service. Currently, there is no data on the containment status of the California. Sonoma County. A new unnamed wildfire. Wood-burning breaking new wildfire reported in Sonoma County on September 8th. Sacramento B. Sacramento B. The wildfire has been burning on private land. Currently, there is Colorado heat pump rebate. HVAC installers see major backlog after homeowners rush to score enormous new heat. The cool down mile high. Coloradans have an opportunity for steep savings thanks to a heat pump rebate plan from the Colorado electricity provider Xcel Energy. Colorado would smoke Uncompahgre field office plans for Fall Transfer Road. Prescribed burn. Bureau of Land Management. For more information, please visit the Colorado Air Pollution Control Division website at https://www. Colorado Governor Pacific Coffee would smoke and Georgia Americus would smoke heavy smoke from wood chip fire. Prompts caution on Highway 19 near Americus WLB. Americus, Georgia WLB drivers are urged to use extreme caution when traveling along Highway 19 south of Americus due to a wood chip fire near the Pennsylvania Butler County heat pump. Thinking about a heat pump? Some things to know about choosing what is best for you. Butler Eagle. He was eager to bring down his costs and shelled out $13,000 for a ground source heat pump that was made more affordable by significant state and Wisconsin heat pump rebate. Instant discounts, rebates, and tax credits help all comfort services keep your home efficient. Wisconsin State Journal. Jeff and Andy, HVAC technician installers at All Comfort Services, installed a Lennox heat pump in a high-efficiency Lennox gas furnace for a Wisconsin Fitchburg heat pump rebate. Community Voices. Federal energy tax credits expire soon. Columns. FitchburgStar.com. Fitchburg Star items include heat pumps. $2,000 max credit. Heat pump water heaters. Households earning less than 80% AMI can receive a rebate amounting to 100% of Canada. British Columbia. Vancouver heat pump rebate. BCRC Heating launches Vancouver heat pump rebate to cut energy costs. Stock market financial content. Eligible homeowners can save a big discount on a new heat pump, $21,000, as long as the program continues, while income qualified households may. Canada Sweden heat pump. This startup says it can have the cost of a heat pump. Here is how Canary Media, the Vancouver-based Jetson, has a simple cost-cutting formula. Lots of tech, no middlemen. Today it is launching its own heat pump product. Australia. Canberra wood smoke opinion. The wood heater phase out in Canberra will give us cleaner air. The Canberra Times. Unfortunately, the clear scientific evidence regarding the health impacts of wood burning and benefits of electrification of domestic heating have Australia wood smoke experts issue warning over shocking health hazards caused by fireplaces. The cool down. Australian experts are sounding the alarm on the dangerous health and environmental effects of wood-burning heaters. Australia. Southern states heat pump rebate. Swapping solar hot water for a heat pump could save you thousands in southern states. Energy Matters. It was 2012, and the federal rebate abruptly came to an end. 250,000 households across Australia had claimed the rebate, which also extended to Heat Europe heat pump. The What Next webinar. The shift to an electric and efficient net zero industry. European heat pump Association company officially launches smart home heat pump system. United Kingdom. Nottingham wood smoke researchers warn of invisible smog traps in built-up areas. BBC News. Wood burning stoves. Nicole Ravindra and Amin Al-Habaibeh in suit stood in the gardens of Nottingham. Image source. Nottingham, Sweden, heat pump Jetson debuts, first smart heat pump that automatically monitors air, energy, and system business wire high costs. And complex installation logistics have kept many homeowners from adopting standard heat pumps. Home electrification company Jetson Sweden, heat pump Jetson Air introduces smart heat pump that features lower installation costs. Clean Technica heat pumps are significantly more efficient than traditional heating and cooling equipment, which means they cost less to operate. Germany heat pump Medea unveils Rainer the air-to-air heat pump built for the North. The Straits Times, Berlin, Germany, September 11, 2025. Paranewswire. Nordic countries have a long history of using air-to-air heat pumps, often combined with fireplaces or Germany. Mannheim heat pump. Almost 2 years ago, MVV Energy AG started to operate the largest river heat pump in Germany, 20 megawatts in Mannheim. 2 more river heat pumps are to be the Netherlands would smoke household wood. Smoke leaves 1.2 million Dutch with lung conditions. Struggling to breathe in L times would smoke illy told AD, but the particles they create have real effects. I am not calling for a total ban, but avoid burning when it is windless. Bangladesh PM 2.5 comparison of PM 2.5 trends and source factors in urban and rural locations in Bangladesh. Science Direct. Fine. Particulate matter. PM 2.5 pollution poses a significant global environmental threat leading to substantial health risks for humans. Bo et China. PM 2.5 chemical characteristics of wintertime. PM 2.5 in background region of northwest China. Science Direct. The contribution of biomass burning to PM 2.5 increased by over 70% during lockdown. Secondary aerosol formation accounted for more than 50% of PM 2.5. China. PM 2.5 gone. Duqing attenuates PM 2.5 induced chronic airway inflammation via regulating the frontiers. Background substantial evidence links fine particulate matter. PM 2.5 to the development of inflammatory lung diseases such as chronic airways, but China heat pump BYD advanced energy saving heat pump system comes standard, reusing residual heat from the powertrain cabin and battery to improve thermal. RAWSEP View BYD Company Limited, or BYD, is a Chinese multinational manufacturing conglomerate headquartered in Shenzhen, Guangdong, China. A new electric vehicle, or NEV, is a term used to describe all type of electric vehicles. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization from BYD website. September 16, 2025. Founded in November 1994, BYD, which stands for Build Your Dreams, is a high-tech multinational company and the world leader in electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles. As a Fortune Global 500 enterprise, BYD relentlessly innovates to create a sustainable future. BYD concluded 2023 with over 3.02 million units of NEVs sold, with export volume exceeding 240K, ranking in the top 10 global new car sales in the first half of the year. On July 4, 2024, BYD became the first car manufacturer worldwide to produce its 8 millionth new energy vehicle. A NEV is term used to describe all type of electric vehicles. India. PM 2.5 air pollution increased 2.5 times in last 2 decades. Deccan Herald. In the year 1998, fine particles, or PM 2.5 particulate matter with a diameter of 2.5 micrometers or less was recorded at 8.45, and in 2023 it. Headlines. Other media. September 16, 2025. 2A Wisconsin Infectious Disease Update Conference 2025 and Wisconsin Madison 2B flu shots and the possibility of COVID-19 shots. 2A Infectious Disease Update Conference 2025 Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, United States, December 19th, 2025 to December 20th, 2025. Honoring a Legacy Advancing Emission, an Infectious Disease Conference. This conference addresses the urgent need for accurate up-to-date information on infectious diseases, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic and amid a national shortage of ID specialists, with over 80% of Wisconsin counties lacking an infectious disease physician. Frontline providers play a vital role in managing both common and emerging infections. Key topics include antibiotic stewardship and combating resistance, vaccine preventable diseases, and addressing hesitancy. Practical approaches to infectious disease care in primary and hospital settings. Designed for primary care and hospital-based providers, this event offers evidence-based insights and actionable strategies to improve patient outcomes and public health. Intended audience. This activity is intended for primary care physicians, physician assistants, nurses, pharmacists, and other healthcare specialists dealing with infectious disease learning objectives. As a result of participation in this educational series, members of the healthcare team will improve ability to prevent, accurately diagnose, and optimally treat infectious disease conditions commonly seen by the primary care healthcare team, develop a culture of antimicrobial stewardship to optimize clinical outcomes and minimize unintended consequences of antimicrobial use. Explain updated infectious disease practice guidelines, describe the unique infectious disease risks of vulnerable patient populations, identify health disparities that may impact access to care and or the management of patients. 2B flu shot clinics at SMPH today and tomorrow. All SMPH employees, including student employees, $0 temporary and part-time appointments, are required to receive an influenza vaccination annually or have a waiver on file. Campus flu shot clinics are a great opportunity to easily get your shot and meet this requirement. This requirement is for all employees regardless of work location. Employee and student clinics on September 16th and 17th today and tomorrow in the Health Sciences Learning Center. HSLC Atrium update on the COVID-19 vaccine. The COVID-19 vaccine may also be offered at these clinics, but it is important to note that the guidance for this vaccine is evolving. It is highly advised to check the frequently asked questions from University Health Services for up-to-date information. As of September 15, 2025, individuals meeting CDC eligibility requirements are eligible to receive a COVID-19 vaccine at UHS vaccine clinics this fall. Please note coverage varies by insurer. Contact your insurer to confirm if your health insurance does not cover your COVID-19 vaccine. You will be responsible for the full cost, estimated as $125. Headlines: The New York Times, September 16, 2025, free essay on threat of vaccines taken away by RFK Jr. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. New York Times newsletter, September 16, 2025. The Health Secretary RFK Jr. has said he will not take away vaccines from anyone, but this flies in the face of what Americans are experiencing on the ground. Dr. Danielle Offrey writes in a new guest essay, when the Food and Drug Administration narrowed its approval of updated COVID vaccines last month, access suddenly became patchwork across the country. And yet the real test of the RFK Jr. promise may come this week as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Vaccine Advisory Committee, made up of the RFK Jr. handpicked advisors, meets to discuss the COVID vaccines, the hepatitis B vaccine, and the combined measles, mumps, rubella, varicella MMRV vaccine. The committee meeting may seem like bureaucratic inside baseball, but it could have a big impact as many as 600 statutes and regulations nationwide reference the committee recommendations, including policies about whether insurance companies are required to cover the cost of the vaccines. I suspect RFK Jr. would be happy to ban many vaccines outright, but that probably would not go over well with the overwhelming majority of Americans who support vaccinations for preventable diseases, so he is tackling the vaccine infrastructure instead. Offrey writes her essay explains what is at stake, and opinion writers will be following the results of the meeting closely. Read the guest essay excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. Guest essay: RFK Jr. said he would not take away vaccines this week will be the test. September 16th. 2025 by Danielle Offrey. Dr. Offrey is a primary care physician in New York. I was recently counseling a patient who was planning to become pregnant. In addition to prenatal vitamins, I discussed the vaccines recommended by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. My patient cut me off. Is it a choice, or is it mandatory? It is your choice, of course, I replied, although I explained why vaccination during pregnancy is important to help protect newborns from an array of serious diseases because of Health Secretary RFK Jr. However, I wonder how much longer I will be able to offer my patients the choice of that protection. This month, RFK Jr. testified before Congress and repeated what he would promised before his Senate confirmation. I am not taking vaccines away from anyone, but this flies in the face of what Americans are experiencing as a result of Food and Drug Administration restrictions on COVID vaccines put in place last month. Vaccines are suddenly harder to get. Average risk adults in many states can no longer walk into their pharmacy and get the vaccine as they had last year. Most children will need a medical evaluation before they can get it. Even those considered high risk are struggling to find shots. A 76-year-old teacher in the Pacific Northwest told me that employees at every pharmacy he called said they were unsure when the vaccine would be available due to government rules. Even the office of his doctor did not have it. There are certainly valid scientific reasons to consider dialing back COVID vaccine recommendations for low-risk individuals, given that the virus is a different beast than it was at the beginning of the pandemic. But what riles medical professionals is that these changes have not been issued as a result of a standard scientific process. It seems that a political goal was set to diminish use of the COVID vaccine, and processes were manipulated in order to achieve the desired outcome. While inconvenient, scientists like the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention were jettisoned. For many of us in healthcare, this unscientific rollback of the COVID vaccine feels like the warning shot. The meeting this week of the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices Advisory Committee on Vaccines is scheduled to include votes not only on the COVID vaccine, but also the hepatitis B vaccine and the combined measles, mumps, rubella, varicella vaccine, or MMRV for short. There is good reason to fear that this meeting will be more political theater than scientific debate. All of the original vaccine experts on the committee were sacked by RFK Jr. 3 months ago and replaced by a new panel that included several people known for vaccine misinformation and against vaccine views. On Monday, 5 more members were added, including one who has promoted and proven COVID treatments like ivermectin. Some experts worry that the committee will do away entirely with recommending hepatitis B vaccines at birth. This vaccine, which helps prevent liver infection, cirrhosis, and cancer, has long been a target of several of the RFK Jr. allies. The committee may recommend against the MMRV combo that has been in use for 2 decades. Children could still be vaccinated against these diseases with a 2-shot regimen of the MMR vaccine and the varicella vaccine. But for some patients, extra shots represent an additional barrier to vaccination, and COVID shots could become even harder to get. The Washington Post reported last week that government officials plan to link the deaths of 25 children to the COVID vaccine based on information submitted to the CDC open reporting system. Anyone can submit unverified reports of vaccine adverse events, even if it is unclear that the vaccine was the cause. Extensive studies have demonstrated far more severe outcomes in children from COVID infection than from COVID vaccination. Many states and school districts tie their vaccine guidelines to the Advisory Committee recommendations, which are cited in nearly 600 statutes and regulations nationwide. The recommendations affect school enrollment policies, vaccinations for healthcare workers, vaccine reminder systems, standing orders that allow nursing homes to vaccinate residents, authorizations for pharmacists to administer vaccines, even state purchasing protocols. Most insurance companies base their coverage on its recommendations. If certain vaccines are no longer recommended, people can face prohibitive out-of-pocket costs. MMRV vaccines, for example, cost $300 or more without insurance. I suspect RFK Jr. would be happy to ban many vaccines outright, but that probably would not go over well with the overwhelming majority of Americans who support vaccinations for preventable diseases, so he is tackling the vaccine infrastructure instead. A recent poll suggests that most Americans believe that vaccines should be made more available, but many feel that RFK Jr. is doing just the opposite. And it is not just the meeting of the Vaccine Advisory Committee that worries experts. Dr. Michael Osterholm, the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota, expects RFK Jr. will tackle the production of vaccines next, adding costly and burdensome requirements to slow their development and manufacture. Dr. Paul Offit, a vaccine expert and professor of pediatrics at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, warned me that RFK Jr. may soon turn his sights on the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, a federal program created to curb frivolous litigation against vaccine makers while giving people an avenue to petition for compensation for vaccine injuries. Before this program began in 1986, many drug manufacturers simply stopped producing vaccines because the liability threats were too great. There is no better way to harm vaccines, Dr. Offit said of dismantling the compensation program. And then we are right back to where we were in the 1980s. This may be the RFK Jr. way of hobbling vaccination without even needing to ban vaccines outright. How should ordinary people and ordinary healthcare professionals respond to deliberate steps to make vaccinations less available? At this point, it is fair to say that the FDA and the CDC and its Vaccine Advisory Committee have been scientifically neutered. The recent decision of California, Washington, and Oregon to form a regional alliance for health recommendations is both a reasonable response and a depressing necessity. The best sources of scientifically validated recommendations at this moment are the medical professional societies such as the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the Infectious Diseases Society of America. Medical groups with lobbying muscle, such as the American Medical Association, need to start listening to their members and use their full force to oppose RFK Jr. efforts to make vaccines less accessible. Insurance companies need to base their coverage guidelines on the evidence-based recommendations of medical professional groups rather than the eviscerated federal agencies. State governments need to provide legislation or executive orders that allow pharmacies to easily administer vaccines, as Governor Kathy Hochul recently did for New York. Doctors and nurses will have to spend precious medical time during visits to focus on vaccine access and countering growing vaccine hesitancy, not to mention begin treating illnesses from the generation of their grandparents. In the end, though, the prescription for this mess is political rather than medical, Americans need to confront their cowardly elected officials before the vaccines that have saved more than 150 million lives globally in the last half-century become unobtainable in this country. And when the hospitalization rates and deaths begin to rise, as they inevitably will, we will communally suffer the painful lesson that politics and incompetence cause far more side effects than any vaccine ever could. Danielle Offrey, a primary care doctor at Bellevue Hospital, is the author of When We Do Harm, A Doctor Confronts Medical Error, and editor of Bellevue Literary Review. Headlines: The New York Times, September 16, 2025. Artificial intelligence. What exactly are AI companies trying to build? Here is a guide. The New York Times Consumers 11 Best Suits for Men of 2025 reviews by Wirecutter. Consumers reading. Try this quiz on the locations of these novels set in the American Old West. The New York Times Consumers. Restaurants: Illinois, Chicago 20 years ago. Alinea electrified Chicago dining. Does it still matter? The New York Times Consumers. Supplements: can against aging supplements help you live longer? What the experts say. The New York Times Dentistry and insurance. Why does it cost so much to have dental work done? The New York Times. Florida says ban on openly carrying guns is invalid after court ruling. The New York Times. Georgia. RAWSEP View, now a Democrat candidate for governor. From the article headline: Former Republican Lieutenant Governor of Georgia enters the Georgia governor race as a Democrat. The New York Times. Medicine and science. Water pollution: when a simple swim carries a risk of dangerous illness. The New York Times. Movie star Democrat Robert Redford, screen idol turned director and activist, dies at 89. The New York Times. Movie star Republican Schwarzenegger urges voters to reject California redistricting measure. The New York Times. Music: RAWSEP View. Yusuf Islam is the current name of musician Cat Stevens, who had his first hit with The First Cut is the Deepest in 1967 and went on the best-selling 1970 album Tea for the Tillman. From the article headline: Yusuf Islam wants to explain himself. The New York Times. Nature Science: these ants found a loophole for a fundamental rule of life. The New York Times. New York City Skateboarding Art Powerhouse International Festival opens its dance floor. First up, skateboarders. The New York Times. New York City mayoral race: which living Democrat does Cuomo admire? He cannot name one. The New York Times. RFK Jr. vaccine denial: who makes vaccine policy decisions in the RFK Jr. Health Department? The New York Times. RFK Jr. vaccine denials: hepatitis B vaccine, once a public health win, is under threat from RFK Jr. The New York Times. RFK Jr. vaccine denials: RFK Jr. adds 5 new members to vaccine committee. The New York Times. RFK Jr. vaccine denials. Opinion: RFK Jr. says he will not take away vaccines. Do not believe him. The New York Times. RFK Jr. vaccine denials: a vaccine committee likely to target hepatitis B shot for newborns. The New York Times. Texas Democrats Lena Hidalgo will not run for another election in Texas. The New York Times. Trump actions: Federal Bureau of Investigation Kirk death, FBI agents fired by Patel speak out on broken trust. The New York Times. Trump actions: Kirk death, Washington Post columnist says she was fired for posts after Charlie Kirk shooting. The New York Times. Trump actions: Kirk death, how the government is trying to silence the Kirk critics. The New York Times. Trump actions: Kirk death. On the Kirk show, J.D. Vance talks of crackdown on liberal groups. The New York Times. Trump actions: Kirk death, opinion: America was defined by a story. It is time for a new one. The New York Times. Trump actions: Kirk death, opinion: the Kirk and the right way to practice politics. The New York Times. Trump actions: Kirk death, war, opinion, the essence of Trumpian language in one 3-letter word. The New York Times. Trump actions: Kirk death, opinion, the Kirk crackdown is underway. The New York Times. Trump actions: Kirk death, opinion, we are going to have to live with one another. The New York Times. Trump actions: Kirk death, Republicans honor the Kirk at vigil in the Capitol. The New York Times. Trump actions: media late night finds Trump strangely fascinated by the White House ballroom. The New York Times. Trump actions: new crypto super PAC garners $100 million to help push industry agenda. The New York Times. Trump economy: Trump proposes to cut quarterly reports for public companies. The New York Times. Trump economy: the long-term unemployed today college grads. The New York Times. Trump lawsuits: Trump sues the New York Times for articles questioning his success. The New York Times. Trump versus the Fed: deception, conflicting paperwork, clerical error, how mortgages of a politician can get muddy. The New York Times. Trump versus the Fed: Federal Reserve to meet under cloud of the Trump attacks. The New York Times. Trump versus Fed: Senate confirms Stephen Moran as Fed governor. The New York Times. Trump versus Fed: Trump administration live updates, White House to appeal decision keeping Fed board governor in place. The New York Times. Trump and Russia. He fled the Putin war. The U.S. deported him to a Russian jail. The New York Times. Trump tariffs are uniting two whiskey heavyweight Scotch and bourbon. The New York Times. United Kingdom. Far right-wing Trumpism. Opinion. Britain hates Trump, but it quite likes Trumpism. The New York Times. United Kingdom. Trump actions. President. The Trump state visit to the UK. What to know. The New York Times. United Kingdom. Trump actions. Trump leaves tense America behind for royal retreat on UK state visit. The New York Times. Venezuela. Trump actions. U.S. strikes a second Venezuela boat, killing 3. Trump says. The New York Times. Denmark. Greenland. Denmark parenting test becomes the latest flashpoint in Greenland. The New York Times. Germany. Electric vehicles. Clean energy. Ford to cut 1,000 jobs in Germany as EV sales slow. The New York Times. Ghana federal judge declines to intervene for migrants deported to Ghana. The New York Times. Malawi. What to know about the Malawi presidential election. The New York Times. China. Trump actions. Could TikTok help bring Trump and Xi together. The New York Times. China. Trump tariffs. How China is weathering the trade war with Trump. The New York Times. China. Trump actions. U.S. and China reach framework for a TikTok sale. The New York Times. China with a hashtag young Chinese are mourning the beauty of the boom years. The New York Times headlines. The Guardian. September 16, 2025. Artificial intelligence AI will make the rich unfathomably richer. Is this really what we want? Dusting with Stella. The Guardian. Artificial intelligence. I love you too. The creepy, unsettling week for my family with an AI toy. Artificial intelligence AI. The Guardian. Consumers. Coffee brewing. How I'd brew cafe quality coffee anywhere from campsite to carry on coffee. The Guardian. Democrats. 2026 elections. Americans have 400 days to save their democracy. Timothy Garton. Ash. The Guardian. Minnesota. RAWSEP View assassination of Democrat Melissa Hortman and her husband 2 months ago. From the article headline. Minnesota votes to fill seat of state representative who was killed along with her husband. Minnesota. The Guardian. Minnesota. Trump at first says he is not familiar with the assassination of the Minnesota Democrat Donald Trump. The Guardian. Minnesota. Who? Trump first says he is not familiar with the assassination video of the Minnesota Democrat. U.S. News. The Guardian. RFK Jr. vaccine denial. Americans should be alarmed. Experts say loss of expertise at CDC will harm U.S. health. U.S. healthcare. The Guardian. RFK Jr. vaccine denials. Mississippi declares infant deaths emergency as CDC program that could have helped is halted. Trump administration. The Guardian. Trump actions. Progressive groups fear McCarthy era attacks in wake of the Kirk shooting. U.S. News. The Guardian. Trump actions. Labor Department like working in a prison cuts fear and understaffing at the Trump Labor Department. Trump administration. The Guardian. Trump actions. Federal Bureau of Investigation. FBI Director Kash Patel sparked mass confusion over the Kirk shooting. Suspect top Democrat says live. Trump actions. J.D. Vance backs mass doxing campaign to find and harass the Kirk critics. The Kirk shooting. The Guardian. Trump actions. J.D. Vance threatens crackdown on far-left groups after the Kirk shooting. J.D. Vance. The Guardian. Trump actions. Trump should be reassuring the country at this time. He is sowing fear instead. Francine pros. The Guardian. Trump actions. Trump to send National Guard to Memphis and says Chicago is probably next. Trump administration. The Guardian. Trump lawsuits. Donald Trump files $15 billion lawsuit against New York Times. Donald Trump. The Guardian. Utah movie star Democrat Robert Redford, giant of American cinema, dies aged 89. Robert Redford. The Guardian. Utah lack of gun control. Utah campus open carry rule under fresh scrutiny after the Kirk shooting. Utah. The Guardian. Brazil. Diplomatic abuse. Brazil minister on U.S. revoking the 10-year-old visa of his daughter. Brazil. The Guardian. Venezuela. Trump actions. Trump announces deadly U.S. strike on another alleged Venezuelan drug boat. Trump administration. The Guardian. United Kingdom media coverage of Trump visit to UK. Channel 4 to mark the Trump UK visit with longest uninterrupted reel of untruths. Trump. The Guardian. United Kingdom media coverage of Trump visit to UK. The Trump state visit to the UK. What is on the agenda? Donald Trump. The Guardian. United Kingdom. Trump actions. Nuclear reactors. RAWSEP View the nuclear energy risk of radioactive contamination from predictable human error makes nuclear energy an unsafe and ultimately unclean energy source. From the article headline. UK and US line up string of deals to build modular nuclear reactors in Britain. Centrica. The Guardian. United Kingdom. Trump actions heighten security when Trump comes to UK. Normal rules of state visits will not apply. Foreign policy. The Guardian. Russia has network of 200 camps for brainwashing Ukrainian children. Report global development. The Guardian. Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here.
Hi, I am Leone. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American. Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your local epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times.
One introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM2.5, and PM2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View Purple Air PM2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.